I am a healer, bringing clarity to our most important questions.
Diabetic retinopathy can happen if blood sugar stays too high over a long period of time.
And comfort in times of uncertainty.
What procedure am I having today?
You are having a bronchoscopy.
Shining a light on a path forward.
You gotta get an OR.
And finding answers when every second counts. I am watching over our frontline heroes, creating a safer place to do their life-saving work, guiding them to faster answers, and delivering care wherever it's needed. I am opening new worlds of discovery and mapping new treatments for every individual. Creating a community to collaborate with thousands and sharing knowledge that can heal millions. I am AI, brought to life by NVIDIA and brilliant healers everywhere.
Nearly 70 years ago, Francis Crick walked from his lab at the University of Cambridge into the Eagle Bar and proclaimed that he had found the secret of life. With the help of Rosalind Franklin at King's College London, Crick discovered the double helix structure of DNA and opened the door to understanding the operating system of life itself. Around the same time, in 1950, Alan Turing at King's College of Cambridge University did his seminal work in computing and artificial intelligence. 70 years later, NVIDIA's Turing GPU pioneered a computer architecture that made artificial intelligence a central method of computation. The results of this approach have proven to be staggering. In computational molecular dynamics, researchers simulated 300 million atoms for 100,000 nanoseconds, a scale that is 10 million-fold larger than what was possible just 15 years ago. Moore's law, the exponential law of computing progress, would have achieved only 1,000-fold. The fusion of GPU-accelerated computing and AI has started the age of super exponential advances. Today, Oxford Nanopore Technologies uses innovative sensors and AI algorithms running on NVIDIA GPU supercomputers to digitize DNA into sequences of billions of characters. ONT's technology helped characterize the coronavirus genome. It is now used to do rapid testing and identify variants, making the UK a leader in this area. The nearly simultaneous breakthroughs of ONT and cryo-electron microscopy for atomic scale imaging and AI computing has set the stage for another scientific breakthrough. Using the same breakthroughs in natural language understanding, we may soon learn the structure and meaning of biology itself. With AI, we will soon decode and understand biology. We are at the beginning of the digital biology revolution. To do this work, scientists need a powerful rocket for their journey. Today, we're inaugurating Cambridge 1. Named in honor of the birthplace of computing and genomics, and also ARM's headquarters, which we hope will be our future home in the UK. NVIDIA's Cambridge 1 is UK's most powerful supercomputer, the fastest industrial supercomputer in the world, the greenest and most energy efficient with a net zero carbon footprint. NVIDIA Cambridge 1 brings together decades of our work in accelerated computing, AI, and life sciences into a single computing center, consisting of NVIDIA's Ampere AI GPU inside NVIDIA's DGX supercomputers, running NVIDIA's Clara computation platform for life sciences. Cambridge 1 is our first big bet on the digital biology revolution. Cambridge 1 and the purchase of ARM is our giant investment in the UK, giving us a platform to work with the amazing universities, companies, and over 1,000 AI startups in this community. Working with NVIDIA researchers, Guy's and St. Thomas's NHS Trust Foundation, GSK, AstraZeneca, King's College London, and Oxford Nanopore are early partners who will access Cambridge One. Some of the first projects slated for the supercomputer are using AI to sequence genomics, discover novel drugs, and to unlock the mysteries of dementia by studying MRI scans. Our partnership with King's College London has led to extraordinary capabilities for the world's medical imaging community. With them, we pioneered federated learning, the ability to build AI models collaboratively without sharing any confidential patient data. And sharing data privacy will be the key to enabling the medical community to leverage artificial intelligence to its full potential. Together with King's College London, we're building the world's most popular, domain-specific, open AI application framework for imaging called MONAI, an invaluable collaborative tool to supercharge the development of AI applications. King's College London, Guy's, and St. Thomas's NHS Trust Foundation and NVIDIA are building AI to do incredibly detailed brain imaging. Learning from the world's largest biomedical research datasets, pioneered by the UK Biobank, we will train AI models to automatically detect abnormal from healthy brains. AstraZeneca and NVIDIA will use Cambridge One to train a language model to understand smiles, the language of chemistry. We can even use AI to synthesize potentially effective compounds and reduce the cost of drug development. The pandemic has made the need to accelerate healthcare discoveries a paramount social and economic imperative. We need to bring these two superpowers together now. The super exponential advances of AI computing and genomics to tackle this pressing need. And in doing this, we will accelerate the digital biology revolution. These first steps bring us full circle. The discoveries made on Cambridge One will take shape in the UK, where it all began, where so much talent resides. But the impact will be global, benefiting millions around the world. Cambridge One, we have a world to save. Make it so.
HPC, AI, and GPU-accelerated computing are fundamentally changing the way in which data centers must be designed and engineered. At KO Data, we've witnessed this evolution firsthand. We are delighted to be the host of NVIDIA's Cambridge One supercomputer, defining a new era of AI-enabled infrastructure within the heart of the UK innovation corridor. Working with NVIDIA comes with the expectation that you'll work at a supercharged pace, so hold on tight. But to have built the UK's most powerful supercomputer amidst the background of the global pandemic has shown what can truly be achieved when a vision and aptitude for collaboration sets a new bar for innovation. For those involved and for the industry peers watching, waiting, Cambridge One has exceeded every one of our expectations. Supercomputers, in essence, perform complex computational analysis at light speed, but they are generally lethargic in evolution. Typically, 2 years development is far from unusual, stifling, restricting, and delaying important research from being undertaken. Yet in a record-breaking time of less than 20 weeks, Cambridge One has gone from concept to fully operational. In respect of KO Data, I'm truly proud at how our team of HPC data center specialists has worked collaboratively with NVIDIA to achieve this. Cambridge One raises the bar for HPC implementations globally. It is the very pinnacle of innovation. It shows the world how NVIDIA's DGX SuperPod system can provide rapid access to some of the world's fastest supercomputers, all for the betterment of mankind.
I'm delighted to be hosting our Founders Panel today as part of Cambridge One Inauguration, the healthcare supercomputer based in the UK. Cambridge One brings together a collaboration between industry, academia, research and scientists to advancement of AI in healthcare. We have Nadine Harash-Haram, Clinical Innovation Lead, Guy's and St. Thomas's NHS Foundation Trust. We have Sebastian Orslin, Professor of Healthcare Engineering at King's College London. We have Rosemary Sinclair Docus, Vice President of Product and Programme Management at Oxford Nanopore. We have Steve Crossan, Vice President of AI and Machine Learning at GSK. And we have Lindsay Edwards, Head of AI, Respiratory and Immunology at AstraZeneca. In your view, what are the biggest challenges in applying AI in healthcare today, and how will Cambridge One assist with this? Perhaps I could start with Sebastian.
I guess when we're talking about AI in healthcare, two major challenges are coming to the front. One being access to data at scale, and the second one being access to computing power at scale. And clearly, Cambridge One is solving the latter problems, and it needs to be intertwined with the former problem, which is really where working very closely with the NHS, working very closely with industry and other places where data are accessible is really essential. What you can do nowadays with supercomputers is going to be always limited in terms of the resolution of your model, unless you are able to actually get access to such a large capacity of power. So that's pretty much what we believe Cambridge One is going to offer, and we already have been demonstrating this with our proof of concept.
We really see actually that we can generate data. We are a company that can generate a huge amount of data, and there's that initial processing step that needs to happen. But what's interesting now is that there's actually two challenges. There's one challenge which is generating, cataloging, and curation of data, but at the same time you're performing discovery on that data. So you actually have the challenge of having to go backwards and forwards and checking and testing your assumptions all the time. And yet a limit to compute actually really doesn't help with those challenges.
From a data perspective, I think there's two ways of thinking about it. One of those is the sort of legacy data, the data that we've got, and then there's the data that we'd like. I think going forward, one of the most important things is to start thinking in terms of producing data pipelines and sort of fully engineered end-to-end data flows that allow us to train some of these more complicated models. I think another key thing is that if you think of modern machine learning methods as being kind of ways of learning complicated functions or complicated ways of taking inputs and turning them into outputs, the more complicated the thing you want your model to do, typically the bigger the model has to be. And that immediately requires greater computation. And as you scale those things up, data and the sort of size and complexity of your model, then the power of your computer limits you. I think another really interesting and important point is, if it takes you 3 weeks to train a model, your ability to hone that model is really difficult. So what you need to be able to do is iterate quickly, and the more compute power you have, say Cambridge One, it becomes possible to fine-tune really quite complicated systems.
And Steve, we've obviously heard a lot about data creation, sort of pipelining, etc. From your perspective, how do you view this opportunity?
If I think about this in the context of UK science as a whole and UK healthcare science as a whole, I think there are a number of enormous assets that the UK has in this area, most notably talent. We have a huge amount of talent, both on the AI side and on the life sciences side, and a huge historical depth of that. That was one of the main reasons why I was very excited to come to GSK last year, because we have both of those in spades. We also have, within the life sciences, as my colleagues have said, the ability to generate now enormous amounts of data, exponentially more data every year, more so even than we were able to do a couple of years ago, and way more so than we were able to do 10 years ago. All of those aspects are in place. The one thing where we also need to play as UK science as a whole is on the compute side. We have more assets in the former two camps, and we're now, with Cambridge One and with other similar opportunities around the UK, we're starting to really get those opportunities on the compute side as well, and that's really what's going to make the difference.
Nadine, how do we think about translating the work done in Cambridge One to bring it to the point of care?
I think it's a very important comment. I mean, it's been really exciting, first being here, but also listening to all the panelists talking about the enthusiasm and excitement around the computing power and the potential of looking at data discovery, data pipelines, that end-to-end solution. But coming at it more from a kind of frontline clinical aspect or a patient aspect, the even more exciting thing for me is, how do we start to reimagine healthcare, where we're actually trying to bring together cutting-edge, healthcare, life sciences, innovation, and compute power to ultimately enable us to do what we're all here trying to do, which is deliver best care to our patients, try and reshape that access to care think about how we deliver more data-driven care, but ultimately give patients that opportunity to have personalized, holistic, data-driven care that's going to hopefully make sure that every patient is getting that best care the first time, every time. And so with my clinical hat and coming at it from a hospital point of view, we're very excited as well to be part of this, because we're sitting with industry leaders, we're sitting with science leaders in the life sciences and this amazing compute power. And it's a greenfield. The opportunity, I think, is immense. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing how this is going to translate into frontline impact for patients.
Sebastian, I know you've got a lot of thoughts in this area, so perhaps maybe we could have some comments from you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think Nadine really makes a clear point that it has actually a direct impact to patients, those models. What will be really important is the deployment of those models into the NHS. And so the way we can see Cambridge One is an extension of a smart NHS supercomputer environment, where one will be able, through appropriate governance, to gather all of those data to be trained at scale across the capability of all of our NHS within the UK, and train models which basically become unbiased, which are equitable as well, which really represent our demographic, represent our population, the different genotypes, the different phenotypes, and therefore have a model which is vastly more performant than any other model created before. And as Lindsay mentioned, those models, it's not only about getting access to a large amount of data, it's really the depth to get those models to a granularity which is not possible at present, is really directly correlated with your amount of computational power. But as well, if you have to wait 2 years, 10 years, 20 years to get your model to be optimized, how are you going to move to the next stage? How are you going to expand this model further? So clearly the patient will win by being able to have models which will be far more personalized, because they are really representative of the entire population. And therefore, in fact, interestingly enough, if you don't do those large-scale models, then there is no way you can personalize them further. And so it's by combining in-depth information of this specific patient and comparing this patient with the entirety of the population and all of the 20 years, 30 years of data that we will be able to exploit, that will be able to do better precision medicine.
So Rosemary, how do you think about translating the work that's been done on Cambridge One to the point of care from your perspective?
Thanks, and it's really, really great to get the views of the team on the front line. From our side, it's interesting because as a technology provider working with institutions and with the healthcare teams, but also working with the industry, means that you can start bringing all of these three pieces together. And so we're tackling it from are the products right, are the offerings right, so that you can translate all of this wonderful work that's happening in the background, these model trainings, these insights. How are they actually going to end up in the hands of a clinician to make a difference to someone on their daily lives? And I guess from the rest of our colleagues here, it will be a similar thing: is how can they take the knowledge, how can they develop the healthcare of the future? Really, from our perspective, we're interested in how can we put that in people's hands so they can make better decisions, so we can bring that data to the clinicians' hands.
Oh, very interesting, thank you. Steve, from a pharmaceutical perspective, how do you think about this translation from, the work being done on the supercomputer to actually, how does that translate through the work that you do, ultimately into patient care?
Into real-world patient impact, yes. Well, I think when I think about what we're doing at GSK.ai, we're fundamentally using AI to understand mechanism in biology. That's a lot of that evidence that we're using is genetic evidence, genetic and genomic evidence. We know that medicines which have genomic evidence behind them are twice as likely to succeed and result in successful medicines for patients at the end. We are using that understanding that we're gaining through AI in two broad ways. Firstly, right at the beginning of the drug discovery pipeline, sort of understanding targets and validating targets. And secondly, at the point of care with the patient. So really using that understanding, not just to understand a disease in its generality, but to understand what is going on with this patient at this moment, at this time, and therefore what is the right treatment or combination of treatments to give to this patient at this time in a clinical setting. That's where this work really translates into making sure that the right people have the highest likelihood of getting the right medicines at the right time.
Yeah, very interesting indeed. Lindsay, what is Cambridge One helping you achieve at AstraZeneca?
Yeah, we have a couple of really exciting projects on Cambridge One. One way to think about modern machine learning methods is to think about them as representation learning algorithms. They learn an encoding of your data that can be useful to do other stuff with. This has been really true in computer vision, it's been true in natural language processing, where the model is able to learn the basic rules of vision and the basic rules of language. So we're using Cambridge One to train a very large model called MegaMol BART to learn the rules of chemistry. So we're trying to learn a representation of chemical space based on a huge chemical library, and then we're going to make it available to everybody, and it can be used for things like new molecule prediction or property prediction and a host of other downstream tasks. We're also using Cambridge One to accelerate our digital pathology program. So one of the challenges with digital pathology is the slides, the images are huge and incredibly, the files are very large. And so what we've done in the past is to break those files up, break those pictures up and train models on those. But that comes with a whole host of problems. Computation on the scale of Cambridge One allows us to do whole slide image processing, which is pretty transformational.
Sebastian, maybe you'd like to comment. I know you have lots of thoughts on this area.
No, absolutely. In fact, we have been already starting to do a few of the important stage to actually deliver this at scale on Cambridge One. What we have been looking at is brain disease, and how can we understand the natural progressions of a disease in the context of radiology, basically using diagnostic imaging, in this particular case MRI, and MRIs which are nowadays acquired in the clinic, and which tends to be quite high resolution, in the order of a cubic millimeter, 1 cubic millimeter of resolution, which is what most people are now using on the MR scanners, and being able to actually build a synthetic image of any brain. And the whole idea here, the whole principle is, can you start to build millions and millions of these images? And by doing this, first, you are generating so many images that you can create a situation where you will be absolutely certain that you have the entirety of the possibilities of how a brain will look like if it's a healthy brain. But what you could do as well is to start to generate the same amount of data, but for specific disease, and then start to understand the evolution and the progression of a disease, start to be able to better diagnose, better stratify different type of disease which are very hard to diagnose, or even being able to, in the future, to prognose. And our intention is to make those databases available to the community as well.
That's very interesting indeed, and the fact you're looking to share that is hugely interesting. Nadine, from your perspective, obviously you're hearing of the projects there. How do you view this work, and how that will have an impact on the frontline healthcare?
One of the most exciting things, and I think I would agree with the comment Rosemary's making, is really that kind of trifecta of industry, life sciences, and kind of patient or healthcare institutions. We're seeing this increasing appetite across the NHS and across kind of UK health sciences and life sciences. How do we start to bring the power of computing, technology, academia to really materially change or shift how we do things? Part of that, of course, is changing behaviors and how we've traditionally delivered care, and that in and of itself is its own uphill battle. But we're seeing that becoming less complicated and more, people are more willing to drive that forward. And what's going to be really exciting is to start to think about, by bringing these partnerships together, we're educating and driving that material behavior change across the industry. We're showing patients, we're showing frontliners that actually data can save lives. Working together in these partnerships has material impact. And so when we look at it, it's really important about setting the problem first. What is the clinical application or clinical problem that you're trying to solve? And if you're coming at it from that approach, as a clinical problem we're trying to solve, and we're going to bring together the power of computing, the power of science, the power of innovation, the power of academia, we're going to try and solve that together. I know Seb and the work that they do at the universities always starts with a clinical problem. He's just described a disease of the brain, but there are many other models where they've brought together clinically led decision-making around how we build these programs together. So I think that's how this is going to really materially shift the frontline adoption and willingness to drive these innovations forward. But equally, it's going to enable us to take the patients and the public on the journey with us, because ultimately this is about their healthcare. It's about how do we enable better access to care for our patients, for the NHS, that is equitable, that is inclusive, that has the diversity of data, the power to make the material shift in particularly chronic diseases, but also some of those more acute diseases that are difficult to treat, where you really need to aggregate huge amounts of data to be able to shift those. So I'm kind of excited looking at it from that point of view, and I think, as you'd have heard from the panel, everyone is looking at it from that point of view as well. Even though we're all coming at it with different hats, it is ultimately landing at how we shift healthcare for the future.
Very interesting indeed, and I would agree the combination of all the founding partners really brings huge value about how we collaborate as a healthcare community. Rosemary, from your perspective, from Oxford Nanopore's perspective, how are you thinking about the use of Cambridge One and what it will achieve?
Well, there are a lot of very, very excited people back at Base, looking forward to getting started with Cambridge One. Quite a few things. There are certain platform development aspects that will really, really accelerate with the ability of using Cambridge One. These are sort of model developments. We have a very different signal, and we use, again, sort of speech recognition type algorithms to deconvolute it. And there's a lot of novel information that's captured in that signal, a lot of base modifications, which are biological markers that are not yet fully understood. And so there's an enormous amount of work to really accelerate, not in just understanding what those markers are and how you call them and how you get them working reproducibly, but also how they impact health. And this is where the working together with the academia, with all the industry comes in, because that's where all the samples are in the healthcare space. I think there's an enormous amount of discovery to be done around novel markers that are not known today, but can be very, very rapidly accelerated with the power of compute.
Yeah, very interesting indeed. Lindsay, from your perspective, how do you think Cambridge One will impact the healthcare system as a whole in the UK? What are the wider implications, you think, of being able to deliver a supercomputer like this to the healthcare system?
It's a terrific question, and it's been really fascinating to hear others' views on this. I mean, obviously from a pharmaceutical perspective, our primary role in all of this is to supply new medicines to our colleagues in medicine. Steve was referring to, I think there's a couple of different ways where machine learning already, we can see it's having an impact. One of those is in the way that we understand the patients that we're trying to find medicines for. Every discovery of a new medicine starts there, and so things like digital pathology already are kind of gaining traction as a way of getting a deeper understanding, a richer understanding of the patients that we're trying to serve. And then I think another key point, which we've sort of touched on a little, is that so much of this has been viewed over the last century as being an intensely human, somewhat messy process. And I think that we're moving more and more towards reimagining these things as being engineering problems rather than just human and scientific problems. And in the drug discovery setting, that is looking at everything from early target discovery through to molecular generation, through to safety screening, through to even clinical trial management, and trying to understand where in that process we can apply modern machine learning methods. The one thing that I would add as well is that I don't think we can train these spectacular models and dump them in the existing systems and expect them to have the effect that we want them to have. Like, we need to work together and completely reimagine how these systems function together for this stuff to have the impact that we want it to have. I think the thing about Cambridge One as well is that kind of compute power allows us to it's a scientific booster rocket, if you like, to be able to try things out that we couldn't try before, and then figure out how we apply those into the new systems as we go forward.
Very interesting, Gene. I would totally agree. The potential is very significant indeed. Steve, from your perspective, how do you think about the impact on the overall health system from Cambridge One?
One of the great strengths, in particular, of the UK system, is the UK scientific community, is that there is this strong tradition of collaboration between pharmaceutical companies, between life sciences companies, between companies like Oxford Nanopore, and with the NHS, with academia as well. So there's actually a really kind of big community out there which already has established ways of working together, not only from the point of view of sort of training the next generation of scientists, both on the AI side and on the life sciences side, but actually in really practical projects which we undertake together. And I think that sort of symbiosis of the ecosystem is going to be part of the key to us sort of achieving the promise of what we're all talking about today, in the future. One example of that is, we are running currently a fellows program where we're getting early stage postdocs from academia in effectively to do a postdoc inside GSK.ai for a couple of years. That community is still connected with its academic partners, And we're starting to do quite significant methods development in that area, taking existing work from the literature and advancing the frontier. Francesca Farina and Emma Slade, for example, have recently published on using graph neural networks, a class of neural networks which deal with data that is in a graphical form, where the important things about the data are the networks that exist between different elements of the data, and which of course is incredibly relevant to genetic and genomic data, which we see right now, and which is a class of neural networks that's very difficult and very difficult to train, very complex to train. These models can become very, very large indeed. And they've recently published some work which has moved that frontier forward a little bit, based on our own resources, and actually we can move it forward another significant step by partnering with NVIDIA on the Cambridge One. So I think that's an example where all of these elements are coming together.
Absolutely, it's about that collaboration. Seb, from your point of view,
if I can just add one point, which perhaps we haven't really touched upon, which is really, really important, is what the UK ecosystem, I think, as well offering is access to extremely bright people who are entrepreneurial. Mm-hmm. And those people, at the moment, they are limited by two things. They are not limited by their talent, they are limited by access to data, and they are limited by access to infrastructure. If we can break those silos, if we can, by the creation of consortiums and infrastructure like Cambridge One, offer to the next set of startups and spin-outs the opportunity to not be limited by computer power, then I believe we will actually see solutions coming from all of our different genius across the country, which at the moment are limited because the only thing they can do is use a few data sets available online on their own computer at home on a single graphic card. And I think we should not underestimate this. I mean, that's hopefully is going to unlock the talent we have in the UK and to bring to patients new solutions that at the moment are basically silent, not because they haven't been invented, because only they haven't been tested and they haven't been created at scale.
Yeah, I think you raise a really important point, which is talent. I think we'd all agree, talent is one of the biggest challenges. And I wonder if I could ask a number of you really about how we think about developing this talent for the future. How do we develop, how do we maintain, how do we attract AI talent to the healthcare system in the UK? Maybe, Nadine, you could give us some comments there.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's, I would echo what Seb is saying. I mean, it's incredibly exciting to see the potential opportunity that is only going to enthuse the earlier kind of stage, more upstream scientists, engineers, and others to get excited about the opportunities that they can get involved in and how they can potentially train these models, train these algorithms, and move that forward. A few months ago, we did a panel actually talking about what should this look like from a kind of, and this was at the launch of one of the centers that Seb leads, is what does this mean when we think about developing talent and taking that talent forward? And I really think it's something we have to be doing upstream. Of course, when I think about it more from a clinical aspect, is even in our programs, our nursing programs, our medical education programs, our pre-med or intercalated programs, should we be bringing these programs around AI, machine learning, knowledge upstream, so that at least at the very least we're versed in this new language, which is a new language, it's a new way of doing things. And at best, we're actually contributing. We're contributing part-time, as in Seb's school. We have a lot of clinical staff that are part-time working with the academic institution as well as on the front line treating patients. And that ability, that symbiosis, that synergy of bringing that skill set that's spending time in industry, coming back into frontline care, spending time in academia, and learning all these new languages, these new words, these new opportunities of how you translate that amazing compute power, that amazing science that people like Oxford Nanopore and others are doing into clinical practice, I think is important. The second thing, I think this transcends even clinical care. It's how do we think about reimagining workflow in hospitals, logistics, many other problems that we often don't think about because we're so focused on frontline patient care. And so probably to Lindsay's point is when we reimagine what healthcare will look like, I think we have to reimagine our systems as well. And so I think what Cambridge One and what this partnership is doing is it's kind of giving us a bit of a kick to move forward faster and make those changes quicker.
Absolutely. Rosemary, from your perspective, how do you think about talent and the challenges that we face?
Yeah, I mean, I'd echo a lot of what our colleagues have just said. From our perspective, we think development starts young. One of the most engaging programs we run are the education programs where people start sequencing in classrooms And when they start sequencing in classrooms, that means that they start base calling in classrooms, which means that they need to start understanding what a GPU is pretty early in life. We have that reach out into that sort of level of real startup, and that is the kind of thing that really excites us, is not just specializing people in AI development or specializing people in molecular biology, but actually getting people to sort of have a really rich understanding of the whole system. So people who have to get involved in wet lab and people who have to get involved in dry lab, to really just create a different type of talent, a sort of a multifaceted one, is the kind that we're really interested in driving.
And the combination of both traditional and new science, so it's fantastic. Lindsay, from your perspective, how does AstraZeneca think about talent and the challenge we face attracting that talent to the UK?
Modern machine learning methods are incredibly complicated things, and as Steve was talking about, sort of method development at the frontier requires people that really understand at depth the techniques that we're using. One of the joys of these modern techniques is the ability to build modular architectures that can deal with lots of different data types simultaneously. So images, for example, free text, omics data from patients, but those systems become very complicated very quickly. You know, folk in my team currently are working on these kinds of architectures, and you need to be able to build really quite complicated, effectively software engineering projects. And to take advantage of compute power like Cambridge One, you need to know how to do that stuff well. So it really is, there's a kind of unicorn overlap between people whose sort of mathematics and understanding of the techniques is really good, but also have fantastic skills in terms of building large, complex software engineering projects. So that's a difficult thing to find at the moment.
Absolutely. Steve, from your point of view, how important is NVIDIA's investment in Cambridge One to the UK and what it means for the healthcare system?
I think there's going to be a really important element in what we do within this intersection of AI and healthcare, AI and biology over the next 10 years. And really, you know, the starting gun has been fired on this decade. I think it's going to be a great decade for that combination, and the UK's extremely well positioned to take advantage of it. On the skills side, we need to, as Lindsay was saying, we need to bring together, you know, engineering, machine learning, but also the life sciences as well, you know, we have great strength in the UK in all three of those areas. Projects like this can kind of inspire people to get involved who are maybe coming from those life sciences backgrounds, or those other alternative backgrounds, those health and medical backgrounds, and it's that sort of fusion of talent that we need in order to realize the promise, I think.
Fantastic. Seb, any thoughts from you in terms of the impact that this will have overall?
I'm first hoping that our funders and our government is actually going to listen to this panel and will take notice that this, I think, is a turning point in the way that the UK is positioning itself with respect to the future of healthcare. I think it's very clear from what you could hear that people have been talking much more about GPUs as they've been talking about molecules. And of course, at the end, it's all about medicine. Of course, at the end, it's all about intervention. It's all about drugs. But rather than doing what could be considered as a random walk to find your solution, now we've got much better tools to drive this. And as I say, at a scale which was not even possible to even contemplate a few years ago. So I think it will put the UK at the forefront, and it's really up to us to grab the opportunity. As one of our very eminent colleagues from GSTT, its own CEO, say, this type of opportunity are really in a situation where you use it or you lose it. And I think that's what the UK is going to be in this position. And we need to help the community to understand it and to appreciate it and to embrace it.
So first of all, thank you for being founding partners of Cambridge One, which I think is a fantastic opportunity, and I can't wait to see the amazing breakthroughs in science that come from this collaboration with, as we say, with industry, with academia and with research and science, but also the opportunity to really transform healthcare in the UK. Thank you for joining us today. It's been a very interesting conversation.